Frank Samuel Mitchell was born on the 24th of December 1929. A monster of a man, Frank the Mad Axeman Mitchell would be a friend and an associate of the infamous Cray twins, but was later murdered at their request. Mitchell grew up one of 7, born into a working class family from Limehouse, East London. Frank's criminal career would begin at the age of 9, when he stole a bicycle from another child. Most children at this age would just receive a warning, but Frank would be taken before a juvenile court and put on probation. As a young adult, Frank possessed great physical strength and would often demonstrate this by lifting a grand piano off the floor with ease. He also had a short temper and, according to one therapist at the time, the mind of a child. Frank would be in and out of borstalls and later prisons, mostly for petty crimes, shop break-ins amongst other things, for most of his young life. And it's prison where Frank Mitchell made his name. Described as a thorn in the flesh of authority, Frank was violent towards guards and fellow inmates. He would also be one of the main ringleaders at the riots at Rochester Borstal, where he would slash a prison guard across the face and would be charged with attempted murder after also attacking a fellow inmate he believed had informed on him. He would later be acquitted of this, but in 1955 Frank would be diagnosed mentally defective and sent to Rampton Psychiatric Hospital. Only 2 years later though, Frank would escape with another inmate. When recaptured, Frank would attack police with 2 meat cleavers and was sent to Broadmoor, where he would later escape once again and broke into a private home and held a married couple hostage with an axe. This incident is where he would get his famous nickname, the Mad Axeman. And in October of 1958, he would be sentenced to life imprisonment for robbery with violence. Frank would be sent to Dartmoor Prison in 1962. The governor of the prison promised Frank if he stayed out of trouble, he would try and get him a release date. The governor of the prison at the time would recommend to the Home Office that Frank be given a release date, but after 4 years, Frank would start getting tired, fed up and angry that he'd still not received any news on a possible release date. Frank befriended Ronnie Cray while the 2 men would be serving prison sentences together at Wandsworth Prison in the late 1950s. Ronnie also paid for lawyers to help Frank in attempts to get a release date. It would be Ronnie's idea to break Frank out of prison, thinking it would help draw attention to Frank's case. However, Reggie was not so keen on the idea, but eventually would give in and agree. Reggie would then visit Frank in Dartmoor Prison to discuss and inform him of the plan, and on the 12th of December 1966, while with a small work party on the moors, Frank would ask a sole guard for permission to feed some nearby horses. A strange request, but it would be granted. Frank would then walk to a quiet road where a getaway car containing associates of the Crays, Albert Donahue and Mad Teddy Smith and Billy Exley, would be waiting for him. Frank would be drove to London, where the Crays would hide him away in a flat in Barking Road, East Ham. It would be over 5 hours though before Frank would even be reported as missing. Eventually the escape would make national news, leading to a political storm regarding lack of security and how a prisoner labelled Britain's most violent convict would be able to escape so easily. The Crays would soon find out they had a big problem on their hands. Frank was a huge, powerful man with a short temper and very unpredictable. Frank was difficult to control. He was not allowed to leave the flat in case he was recognised, so it's like he'd left one prison and now was trapped in another. And as he was unwilling to hand himself in and go back to prison, it now seemed Ronnie and Reggie had a major issue on their hands. On the 24th of December 1966, Frank Mitchell was led into the back of a van by Cray associate Albert Donahue. Frank was told he was going to see Ronnie Cray. It's alleged that two famous underworld faces, Freddie Foreman and Alfie Gerard, was waiting in the back of the van, armed with revolvers. Once the van doors closed and the engine started, the two men would open fire on Frank, eventually killing him. Albert Donahue would claim he heard a total of 12 shots. The body of Frank Mitchell would never be recovered. Freddie Foreman would later reveal that Mitchell's body was wrapped in chicken wire, weighted down and dumped in the English Channel. Reggie and Ronnie would claim, however, that Mitchell was never murdered, but smuggled out of the country. It was a common theory back then that if there was no body, there was no case. Despite Cray associate Albert Donahue giving evidence to police and cooperating, even willing to testify, Ronnie and Reggie and their older brother Charlie, as well as Freddie Foreman, would all be acquitted of the murder of Frank Mitchell. In Freddie Foreman's 1996 autobiography Respect, Freddie would admit to killing Frank Mitchell, stating it was a favour for the Cray twins. Foreman would be arrested and questioned by police, but the CPS announced it would not be reopening the case because of the double jeopardy law. Frank Mitchell's story and life would then be turned into a movie in 2019, The Crays, The Mad Axeman. This has been the story of the infamous London underworld figure, Frank Mitchell. If you like the content, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.